The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like angry wasps as Maya Chen pushed through the glass doors of Pinnacle Marketing Solutions at exactly 7:47 a.m. The security guard, Marcus, gave her a friendly nod. He was one of the few people in the building who treated her with basic human dignity. She was always early, not because she wanted to impress anyone, but because arriving before the others meant fewer sneers, fewer whispered comments about her thrift store blazers and worn-out flats. The office smelled like stale coffee and the lingering scent of yesterday's stress eating. Maya's heels clicked against the polished concrete floors as she made her way through the maze of cubicles and workstations. The open-plan office was supposed to promote collaboration and creativity, but mostly it just amplified every conversation, every phone call, every moment of workplace drama that Maya had to pretend she wasn't witnessing. "Coffee's not going to make itself, Maya." Derek Morrison's voice boomed across the open office space before she'd even reached her desk. At 28, Derek was the golden boy of account management, with his perfectly styled hair that probably cost more than Maya's monthly grocery budget, designer suits that he wore like armor, and the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about rent money or student loan payments. He leaned back in his Herman Miller chair, a chair that cost more than Maya made in 2 months, feet propped up on his mahogany desk, already scrolling through his phone with the casual arrogance of someone who believed the world owed him success. Maya didn't respond. She never did. 3 years of experience had taught her that engaging with Derek's morning demands only led to more demands, more condescension, more reminders of her place in the office hierarchy. Instead, she set down her canvas tote bag, the same one she'd been carrying for 3 years, a graduation gift from her mother that had seen better days, and walked to the break room. The break room was a cramped space with outdated appliances, and a motivational poster about teamwork that someone had ironically defaced with mustache drawings. The coffee machine was a temperamental beast that only she seemed to understand, probably because she was the only one who'd bothered to read the manual and actually maintain it. 2 scoops of dark roast, 1 of medium, filtered water that she'd learned to let run for 30 seconds to clear out any metallic taste, and exactly 4 minutes of brewing time. She'd perfected this routine after countless mornings of hearing complaints about bitter or weak coffee from people who couldn't be bothered to learn how to operate a simple machine themselves. "Make sure it's strong today, Maya. Some of us actually have real work to do," called Jessica Walsh from her corner office. Jessica was the creative director, a title she wore like armor. Her red hair was always perfectly curled, her makeup flawless even at 8 in the morning. She joined the company 6 months after Maya, but had been promoted twice already. Maya measured the coffee grounds with practiced precision, her movements automatic after years of repetition. Real work. The phrase echoed in her mind with familiar bitterness, as if the 12-hour days she spent coordinating everyone's schedules, managing client files, handling vendor relationships, and keeping the entire office running smoothly wasn't real work. As if the budgets she secretly helped balance and the client presentations she ghost-wrote weren't contributing to the company's success. As if her business degree from Portland State University, earned while working 2 part-time jobs and caring for her sick grandmother, somehow didn't qualify her for anything more than coffee service and filing. "Did you remember to order more printer paper?" This from Bradley Kim, the finance manager who always seemed to find fault with everything Maya did. He was standing in the doorway of the break room, his arms crossed, wearing that expression of barely contained annoyance he reserved especially for her. "It's being delivered this afternoon," Maya replied quietly, not looking up from the coffee machine. She'd actually ordered it 3 days ago, anticipating they'd run low. She always anticipated. "And the catering for the Morrison account presentation?" "Confirmed for 2 p.m. Mediterranean platter just like Mr. Morrison requested." Bradley grunted and walked away without a thank you. Maya wasn't surprised. In the 3 years she'd worked at Pinnacle, she could count on one hand the number of times any of them had actually thanked her for anything. The coffee finished brewing, and Maya poured it into the insulated carafe. She arranged the cups, sugar, and cream on the tray she'd brought from home. Her own tray, because the company couldn't be bothered to provide proper serving materials for their assistant. As she carried the tray to the main office area, she caught fragments of conversation from the cluster of desks near the window. The account executives were huddled together, probably discussing their weekend plans. Maya knew none of them would include her, even though she'd been working here longer than most of them. Saw the funniest thing on Instagram last night. That new restaurant in Soho is supposed to be amazing. Maya, hurry up with that coffee. Some of us have client calls. Maya distributed the coffee cups, each person taking theirs, without making eye contact. She was invisible to them, a coffee-serving robot in ill-fitting business attire. But as she moved through the office, Maya's sharp eyes were taking in everything. The numbers on Bradley's screen showing declining profits, the stress lines around Jessica's eyes as she stared at a campaign that wasn't working, the way Derek kept checking his phone with increasing anxiety. Pinnacle Marketing Solutions was struggling. Maya could see it in the delayed vendor payments, the canceled client meetings, the way Mr. Harrison, the company owner, had been having increasingly heated phone conversations behind his closed office door. But none of them thought the coffee girl was smart enough to notice, let alone understand what it meant. Back at her desk, a cramped corner station with a hand-me-down computer and a chair that squeaked every time she moved, Maya opened her laptop. Not the company laptop, which was ancient and barely functional, but her own MacBook Pro. She'd saved for 8 months to buy it, eating ramen and walking to work to afford the payments. While the others chatted and joked, Maya was already working. She pulled up spreadsheets, market research, client communications. On paper, she was just an administrative assistant making $32,000 a year. In reality, she was the invisible backbone that kept Pinnacle functioning. Her phone buzzed with a text from her business partner, Alex. Coffee shop numbers look good. Ready to discuss the next expansion? Maya smiled, the first genuine smile of her day. 3 years ago, she'd started investing in a small coffee shop in Brooklyn with money she'd saved from her salary and a small inheritance from her grandmother. Now they owned 3 locations, and Maya's 60% stake was generating more monthly income than her day job. But nobody at Pinnacle knew that. Another text. This one from her investment advisor. Tech stock recommendations attached. Your portfolio is up 23% this quarter. Maya quickly minimized her phone as Derek approached her desk, carrying a stack of papers and wearing his usual expression of mild irritation. I need these expense reports organized and filed by noon, he said, dropping them on her desk without ceremony. And call the Henderson Group to reschedule our meeting. I forgot I have a golf game. Of course, Mr. Morrison, Maya replied, her voice steady and professional. Inside, she was calculating. Derek's golf game would cost the company a potential $150,000 contract, because Henderson Group was notoriously particular about punctuality and respect. But it wasn't her job to point that out. As Derek walked away, Maya heard him mutter to Jessica, I swear, sometimes I think we could replace her with a coffee machine and nobody would notice the difference. Jessica laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the office noise. At least a coffee machine wouldn't need health insurance. Maya's fingers tightened on her pen, but her expression remained neutral. She'd learned long ago that reacting only made things worse. Instead, she channeled her anger into something more productive, planning. That evening, Maya was the last to leave the office as usual. The others had filtered out between 5:30 and 6, chatting about their dinner plans and weekend activities. Maya stayed until 7:30, finishing the work they'd all dumped on her desk and preparing for the next day's chaos. The office was quiet, except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. Maya gathered her things, but before leaving, she walked to the window that overlooked downtown Portland. The city lights twinkled below, each one representing dreams, ambitions, businesses being built and destroyed. Somewhere down there, coffee shops were serving their last customers of the day. Her investment portfolio was growing even as she stood there. Her real estate holdings, a small apartment building she'd purchased with careful financing, were generating rental income. Maya Chen, the invisible assistant, was building an empire one small piece at a time. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Robert Martinez, her real estate agent. Maya, I found something interesting. That office building on 5th Street, the one housing Pinnacle Marketing, it's going on the market next month. Owner wants a quick sale. Maya's heart skipped a beat, but her voice remained calm. Send me the details. It's pricey, but with your current assets and the loan we discussed, it's definitely feasible. Are you thinking what I think you're thinking? Maya looked around the empty office, at the desks where people who treated her like furniture spent their days, at the conference room where decisions about her future were made without her input. Maybe, she said quietly. Send me everything. As she walked to the elevator, Maya's mind was already racing. The building that housed Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. The company that had mocked her, overlooked her, underestimated her for 3 years. The same company that was struggling financially while she grew stronger. The elevator dinged, and Maya stepped inside. Tomorrow, she'd bring them their coffee, and organize their papers and smile politely when they made their jokes. But tonight, she had plans to make. The invisible girl was about to become impossible to ignore. 6 months later, Maya's routine hadn't changed much. At least, not visibly. She still arrived at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions at 7:47 a.m., still made the perfect coffee, still endured the daily barrage of condescension from Derek, Jessica, and Bradley, but everything else in her life had transformed. Maya, the Henderson. Group is here early and the conference room isn't set up. Derek's voice carried across the office, tinged with the panic that had become increasingly common. The Henderson group meeting he'd originally blown off for golf had been rescheduled 3 times, and they were not happy about it. Maya was already moving, her arms full of presentation materials, bottled water, and the catering setup. She'd seen the Henderson group's black sedan pull up 15 minutes ago and had been preparing since then. As always, she was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. "I've got it, Mr. Morrison," she called back, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around her. Jessica was frantically printing last-minute changes to the presentation. Bradley was on the phone with accounting trying to figure out why their payment to Henderson had been delayed, and Derek was pacing like a caged animal. As Maya arranged the conference room, she overheard Derek's hushed conversation with Jessica near the printer. "We can't afford to lose this account," Derek was saying, his usual confidence replaced by genuine worry. "Harrison's been breathing down my neck about revenue numbers. If this deal falls through, it won't," Jessica replied, but Maya could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "The presentation is solid. Maya actually caught some errors in the budget projections last week." Maya almost smiled. Of course she'd caught the errors. $50,000 worth of miscalculations that would have cost Pinnacle the contract and probably gotten someone fired. But she'd fixed them quietly, without fanfare. Just another invisible contribution to keep the company afloat. The Henderson Group executives filed into the conference room. 3 sharp-suited individuals who radiated the kind of success that came from making smart decisions and working with competent people. Maya recognized the type. She'd been studying them for months through her own business dealings. "Gentlemen, ladies," Derek began, his salesman smile firmly in place. "Thank you for your patience with our scheduling. We're excited to present..." "Before we begin," interrupted Catherine Henderson, the company's CEO, "I'd like to address the elephant in the room. Your payment for the preliminary work was 2 weeks late. In our industry, that's unacceptable." Maya watched from the corner where she was setting up the laptop for the presentation. Derek's face flushed, and she could practically see him scrambling for an explanation that wouldn't make Pinnacle look incompetent. "There was a minor processing delay," Bradley jumped in smoothly. "Your accounting department seems to have several minor delays," Catherine cut him off. "Our CFO has been tracking payments from various vendors. Pinnacle's pattern suggests cash flow issues. The room fell silent. Maya continued her setup, but every nerve was attuned to the conversation. This was it, the moment when Pinnacle's financial struggles would finally be exposed. "I assure you, Mrs. Henderson, that's not the case," Derek said, but his voice lacked conviction. "We've been growing rapidly and adjusting our systems to handle the increased volume. Mr. Morrison," Catherine's voice was ice-cold professional, "we've done our research. Your company has lost 3 major accounts in the past 6 months. Your office lease is 2 months behind. Your staff turnover rate is 300% above industry standard. Do you really think we're going to entrust our $2.3 million campaign to a company that can't keep its lights on?" Maya's hand stilled on the laptop keyboard. $2.3 million. She'd known the Henderson contract was big, but she hadn't realized it was that big. That was more than Pinnacle's total revenue for the previous quarter. "Mrs. Henderson," Derek tried again, desperation creeping into his voice. "I think there's been some miscommunication." "There's been no miscommunication." Catherine stood up, her colleagues following suit. "We'll be taking our business elsewhere. Good day." They filed out of the conference room, leaving behind a stunned silence and the ruins of Pinnacle's last hope for financial stability. Maya quietly closed the laptop and began clearing the untouched catering spread. "This is a disaster," Jessica whispered, her face pale. "That was our biggest potential contract." "Harrison's going to have our heads," Bradley muttered, already pulling out his phone to call the owner. Derek just stood there, staring at the conference table as if it might offer some solution to their crisis. For the first time since Maya had known him, he looked genuinely defeated. "Maya," he said suddenly, his voice flat, "clean this up and cancel the rest of my appointments for today." As the 3 of them trudged back to their desks, Maya finished clearing the conference room. But instead of feeling sorry for them, she felt something else entirely: opportunity. That afternoon, while Pinnacle Marketing Solutions descended into quiet panic, Maya took an extended lunch break. She walked 6 blocks to a small cafe where she'd arranged to meet Robert Martinez, her real estate agent, and David Chen, her business attorney. No relation, despite the shared surname. "The Henderson Group meeting didn't go well, I'm guessing?" Robert asked as Maya slid into the booth across from him. He was a sharp-eyed man in his 50s who'd helped Maya navigate some complex real estate deals over the past year. "Pinnacle just lost their biggest potential client," Maya confirmed, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "Mrs. Henderson mentioned they're 2 months behind on their office lease." David, a younger man with an MBA and a law degree, leaned forward. "That accelerates everything. If they can't make lease payments, the building owner will be even more motivated to sell quickly." "Speaking of which," Robert slid a folder across the table. "I have the final numbers on the 5th Street building. The owner is asking $2.8 million, but given the circumstances with their primary tenant, I think we can negotiate down to $2.4 million. Maya opened the folder, scanning the financial projections. The building was actually undervalued for its location and condition. With Pinnacle struggling, she could probably get it for even less. "What about financing?" she asked. "With your current portfolio and income from the coffee shops, plus the rental property income, you'll qualify for a commercial loan covering 70% of the purchase price," David explained. "You'd need to bring about $750,000 to the table." Maya nodded. Between her savings, her business profits, and some strategic liquidation of her stock portfolio, she could manage that. Barely, but she could manage it. "There's one more thing," Robert said, his expression growing serious. "I did some digging into Pinnacle's financial situation. They're worse off than we thought. They owe back rent, back taxes, and they've got creditors circling. The company's going to fold within the next 6 months, guaranteed." "Which means," David added, "once you own the building, you'll need new tenants. Have you thought about what kind of businesses you'd want to attract?" Maya smiled, the same quiet smile she'd been perfecting for 3 years. "Actually, I have some ideas about that." Over the next hour, they discussed timelines, financing options, and legal strategies. By the time Maya walked back to the Pinnacle offices, she'd set in motion a plan that would change everything. The rest of the morning passed in a familiar blur of invisible competence. Maya fielded phone calls that others were too busy or too important to take, organized files that had been carelessly scattered by people who knew someone else would clean up their messes, and quietly fixed the small problems that would have become major crises if left unattended. She rescheduled Derek's client meeting, the third time this month, corrected errors in Jessica's budget projections, saving the company approximately $15,000 in overcharges, and reminded Bradley about the quarterly tax filing deadline, which he'd apparently forgotten despite 3 previous reminders. At 11:30 a.m., her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she recognized: Premium Coffee Solutions, the distributor for her coffee shops. Maya Chen, she answered quietly, turning slightly away from the office noise. Maya, it's Jennifer from Premium. I wanted to give you a heads up that the Ethiopian blend you ordered for the downtown location is getting rave reviews. We've had 3 other shop owners ask where they can get the same supplier information. Maya smiled, the first genuine smile of her day. That's great news, Jennifer. How are the numbers looking for this quarter? Exceptional. All 3 locations are up 15% from last quarter, and the profit margins are exactly where you projected. You've got a real gift for this business. After ending the call, Maya returned to her administrative tasks, but her mind was elsewhere. While Derek and Jessica and Bradley saw her as nothing more than an overpaid secretary, she was actually running a small business empire that was growing every month. The irony wasn't lost on her. The people who thought she wasn't smart enough for real work had no idea she was already more successful than any of them. At 6:30, when the office had mostly emptied out, Maya's phone rang. It was Alex, her business partner in the coffee shop venture. Maya, you're not going to believe this. Alex's voice was excited. That investor group from Seattle, they want to buy us out. All 3 locations, plus they want to hire us to consult on their expansion plans. They're offering $1.2 million. Maya nearly dropped her phone. $1.2 million. Her 60% stake would be worth $720,000, plus consulting fees. Combined with her other assets, that would give her more than enough to buy the building outright. No loan needed. When do they need an answer? Maya asked, keeping her voice steady, despite her racing heart. End of the week. Maya, this is it. This is our shot at the big leagues. After hanging up, Maya sat in the empty office, surrounded by the detritus of other people's failures. 3 years ago, she'd been a desperate college graduate, grateful to get any job that would pay her bills. Now she was sitting on assets worth nearly $2 million, and she was about to buy the building that housed the company that had treated her like dirt. Her computer chimed with an email from Robert. Building owner wants to meet tomorrow. Are you ready to make an offer? Maya looked around the office one more time. At Derek's desk, cluttered with unpaid invoices and desperate client emails. At Jessica's workspace, covered in rejected creative concepts and empty coffee cups. At Bradley's corner, where calculator tape and stress-scribbled notes told the story of a company hemorrhaging money. She typed back, I'm ready. Tomorrow, she'd bring them their coffee and smile politely when they made their jokes. But tonight, Maya Chen was about to become a property owner. The invisible girl was building something they couldn't see, couldn't understand, and couldn't stop. The foundation was nearly complete. Soon, it would be time to build the rest of her empire. Maya stood in the marble lobby of the 5th Street building at 9 a.m. sharp, wearing her best business suit. Not one of the thrift store blazers she wore to Pinnacle, but a tailored charcoal, gray ensemble from Nordstrom that had cost more than 2 months of her assistant's salary. The suit had been an investment, purchased with money from her coffee shop profits specifically for occasions like this. She'd learned long ago that in business, perception mattered almost as much as competence, and today she needed to be perceived as exactly what she was, a serious investor with serious money. The marble floors reflected the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and Maya could hear the subtle sounds of a building coming to life. Elevators humming, phones ringing in distant offices, the muted conversations of early arrivals. This building represented everything she'd been working toward: stability, respect, control over her own destiny. Beside her, David Chen adjusted his tie and checked his watch, his expression calm but alert. "Remember," he said quietly, "let me handle the legal terminology, but the vision is all yours." Mr. Carlson responds well to confident investors who understand the market. Eric Carlson, the building owner, emerged from the elevator precisely on time. He was a tall, silver-haired man in his 60s with the bearing of someone who'd spent decades making successful real estate deals. His handshake was firm, his smile professional but warm. "Ms. Chen, I presume. Robert Martinez speaks very highly of you." "Thank you for meeting with us, Mr. Carlson," Maya replied, her voice steady and professional. "I'm excited to discuss the potential of this property." As they rode the elevator to the building's upper floors, Carlson gestured toward the directory. "As you know, the building is 80% occupied, though we're having some challenges with our largest tenant." Maya nodded. "Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. I understand they're experiencing some financial difficulties." "That's putting it diplomatically," Carlson said with a wry smile. "They're 3 months behind on rent now, and yesterday their primary lender called me directly. Between you and me, I don't think they'll make it to Christmas." The elevator stopped at the top floor, and they stepped out into a beautifully appointed office space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Portland. The view was spectacular. Maya could see the river, the mountains in the distance, and the bustling energy of a city that was growing and changing every day. "This could be your executive suite," Carlson said, gesturing toward the corner office. "Or you could lease it out. This space alone rents for $8,000 a month." Maya walked to the windows, looking down at the street below. From this height, she could see the morning rush hour in full swing. People hurrying to jobs where they might be appreciated, or might be overlooked, or might be building something bigger than anyone around them realized. Somewhere down there, her former colleagues were probably wondering where she was. She'd called in sick, the first sick day she'd taken in 3 years, and she could imagine Derek's irritation at having to make his own coffee, Jessica's confusion about where to find the client files she needed, Bradley's panic about the vendor, payments that Maya usually handled without being asked. The thought brought her a moment of satisfaction. For 3 years, they'd treated her contributions as if they were automatic, inevitable, unworthy of acknowledgement. Today, they were learning exactly how much they'd taken for granted. "What's your vision for the building?" Carlson asked, genuinely curious. "Robert mentioned you're in the hospitality and investment sectors." Maya turned from the window, her mind clear and focused. "I see this as a hub for innovative businesses. The location is perfect, close to the financial district, but accessible to the creative neighborhoods. I'd want to attract a mix of established companies and startups, maybe add some shared conference facilities, perhaps a cafe on the ground floor. A cafe?" Carlson raised an eyebrow. "I have experience in the coffee industry," Maya said simply. "There's nothing like that within 3 blocks of here. The building's tenants would love the convenience, and it would generate additional foot traffic." For the next hour, they toured every floor of the building. Maya took notes, asked intelligent questions about utilities, maintenance costs, and tenant histories. She could see David watching her with growing admiration. This wasn't the nervous assistant he'd expected, but a businesswoman who understood exactly what she was looking at. "Ms. Chen," Carlson said as they concluded the tour, "I have to admit, when Robert first mentioned you, I was skeptical. A young woman with limited commercial real estate experience wanting to purchase a $2.8 million property? But you clearly know what you're doing." "I've been preparing for this opportunity for a long time," Maya replied. "I'm ready to make a serious offer." They returned to Carlson's office on the second floor, where David opened his briefcase and pulled out a formal purchase agreement. Given the current market conditions and the challenges with the existing tenant situation, David began, we're prepared to offer $2.2 million for the property, with a 45-day closing period. Carlson frowned. That's significantly below my asking price. It's a fair offer considering the circumstances, Maya said calmly. Pinnacle Marketing owes you approximately $75,000 in back rent, which you're unlikely to recover. They'll probably declare bankruptcy within 6 months, leaving you with a 30% vacancy rate and the costs of finding new tenants. I'm offering to take that problem off your hands while providing you with a clean cash sale. Cash? Carlson's interest was clearly piqued. Cash, Maya confirmed. No financing contingencies, no drawn-out approval processes. We can close in 30 days if you prefer. Carlson leaned back in his chair, studying Maya with new respect. You've done your homework. I always do. After another hour of negotiation, they settled on $2.3 million with a 30-day closing. Maya would officially own the building and become Pinnacle Marketing's new landlord before the end of the month. As they walked back to the lobby, Carlson shook Maya's hand. I'm curious about something, Ms. Chen. You seem to know quite a bit about Pinnacle Marketing's situation. Do you have some connection to the company? Maya smiled, the same quiet smile she'd been perfecting for years. You could say that. That afternoon, Maya returned to Pinnacle Marketing Solutions at 2:30 p.m., claiming she'd had a doctor's appointment. Derek was waiting for her at her desk, his face flushed with irritation. Where have you been? He demanded. I've been trying to reach you all morning. The Morrison account presentation got moved up, and I need those client files organized immediately. I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison, Maya said, settling into her squeaky chair. I'll get right on that. As she worked, Maya listened to the conversation swirling around the office. The Henderson Group's rejection had sent shockwaves through the company, and now everyone was scrambling to find new clients, new revenue streams, any way to keep the lights on. Did you hear? Jessica whispered to Bradley near the copy machine. Harrison's meeting with bankruptcy lawyers tomorrow. It's not that bad yet, Bradley whispered back, but his voice lacked conviction. We've got the Peterson account presentation next week, and if we land that, it might buy us another 2 months, Jessica interrupted. But Peterson's only worth $50,000. We need miracle, not a Band-Aid. Maya printed out Derek's client files, her mind racing. The Peterson account. She'd helped prepare that presentation too, had spotted the strategic errors that would have tanked their chances. But now she wondered, should she fix those errors, or let Pinnacle fail on its own merits? Her phone buzzed, with a text from Alex. Investor meeting confirmed for Friday. They want to fast-track the buyout. We could have a check by next week. Another text, this one from Robert. Carlson accepted the offer. Congratulations, you're about to become a building owner. Maya looked around the office at the people who had spent 3 years treating her like she was invisible. Derek was on the phone, his voice strained as he tried to convince a potential client that Pinnacle was still a viable option. Jessica was staring at her computer screen, probably trying to create magic out of a budget that wouldn't support her creative vision. Bradley was surrounded by stacks of unpaid bills, playing a shell game with creditors. None of them had any idea that their fate was about to be decided by the quiet woman who brought them coffee every morning. At 5:30, as the office emptied out, Maya made a decision. She walked to Derek's desk and left a note. Found some issues with the Peterson presentation. Corrections attached. She couldn't help herself. Even after everything they'd put her through, Maya couldn't watch them fail due to preventable mistakes. It wasn't kindness. It was strategy. She needed Pinnacle to survive long enough for her plan to work. That evening, Maya sat in her small apartment, surrounded by documents, contracts, and financial projections. In 2 weeks, she'd own the building. In 3 weeks, she'd have over $1 million from the coffee shop sale. And in less than 2 months, she'd be in a position to make Pinnacle Marketing Solutions an offer they couldn't refuse. Her phone rang. It was her mother, calling from San Francisco. "Maya, darling, how's work going? Are you still enjoying your job at that marketing company?" Maya looked around her apartment, at the business plans and acquisition documents spread across her kitchen table. "Actually, Mom, I think I'm about to make some big changes." "Oh, are you finally going to ask for that promotion you deserve?" Maya smiled. "Something like that." After hanging up, Maya opened her laptop and began typing. Tomorrow, she'd bring Derek his coffee and smile politely when he made his jokes. But tonight, she was drafting a business plan that would change everything. The invisible girl was about to become the most important person in the room. 3 months later, Maya Chen stood in her new corner office on the top floor of the 5th Street building, watching the morning sun stream through floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of downtown Portland. The office was everything she'd dreamed of during those long years as an assistant. Spacious, elegant, with modern furniture that she'd chosen herself and art on the walls that reflected her personal taste rather than some corporate decorators. Generic vision. The nameplate on her door read, "Maya Chen, CEO, Apex Holdings," in elegant brass lettering. The coffee in her hand was from her own cafe on the ground floor. Maya's Corner, which had opened 2 weeks ago and was already the most popular lunch spot in the financial district, with lines of customers that wrapped around the block during peak hours. The cafe featured locally sourced ingredients, fair trade coffee, and a menu designed by a chef she'd poached from one of Portland's top restaurants. It was exactly the kind of establishment she'd envisioned when she first started, planning her empire, successful, sustainable, and respected. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. David Chen entered, carrying a thick folder and wearing the satisfied expression of a lawyer who just closed a particularly complex deal. "It's official," he announced, setting the folder on her desk. "Pinnacle Marketing Solutions has accepted your acquisition offer. As of 9 a.m. this morning, you own the company." Maya nodded calmly, though her heart was racing. The employment contracts? All signed. Derek Morrison, Jessica Walsh, and Bradley Kim will retain their current positions, reporting directly to you as the new owner. Their salaries remain the same, but their performance reviews will now be conducted by, David smiled, their former assistant. The irony wasn't lost on Maya. 3 months ago, she'd been bringing these people coffee and organizing their paperwork for $32,000 a year. Now she was their boss, and they had no idea what was coming. "When do you want to break the news?" David asked. Maya checked her watch. 9:15 a.m. They'll be expecting their morning coffee soon. I think it's time for a staff meeting. Maya walked through the building lobby, past the bustling cafe where a line of customers waited for their morning caffeine fix. The transformation of the ground floor had been one of her proudest achievements. What had once been an empty retail space was now a thriving business that generated both profit and community goodwill. The cafe featured exposed brick walls, modern pendant lighting, and comfortable seating areas where business meetings happened alongside casual conversations. The barista, a young woman about Maya's age named Sarah, waved as she passed. Sarah was a former Starbucks manager who jumped at the chance to help Maya create something special, and her expertise had been invaluable in getting the cafe off the ground. "Morning, Ms. Chen." "The usual?" Sarah called out, her voice carrying over the gentle hum of conversation and the espresso machine's rhythmic hissing. "Not today, Sarah. Today's a special day." Maya's voice carried a note of anticipation that made Sarah grin with curiosity. Maya took the elevator to the 3rd floor, her heart beating steadily, but with an undercurrent of anticipation that she'd been building toward for months. This moment, this exact moment, was the culmination of 3 years of careful planning, strategic thinking, and relentless execution. Every insult she'd endured, every condescending comment, every moment of being treated as invisible had led to this. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped into the familiar chaos of Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. The office looked exactly the same as it had the day before. Cramped cubicles, outdated equipment, the persistent smell of stress and cheap coffee. But everything was different now, because Maya was different. She was no longer the invisible assistant begging for scraps of respect. She was the owner, the decision-maker, the person who would determine everyone else's future. The familiar sounds of ringing phones, clicking keyboards, and frustrated conversations greeted her as she pushed through the glass doors. But today, those sounds didn't make her feel small or overlooked. Today, they sounded like opportunity. Derek was at his desk, scrolling through his phone with the same expression of mild irritation he always wore, completely oblivious to the fact that his world was about to change forever. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his usually perfect hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes that suggested he'd been losing sleep over the company's financial problems. Jessica was hunched over her computer, probably working on a campaign. With an impossible deadline and an inadequate budget, her usually perfect appearance showing signs of stress and overwork. Bradley was on the phone with what sounded like another creditor, his voice strained with the kind of desperation that came from trying to make numbers work when they simply wouldn't. None of them looked up when Maya entered. Why would they? Their minds. She was just the assistant, invisible as always, arriving late from what they probably assumed was some minor personal crisis that had nothing to do with them. They had no idea that their assistant had spent the morning finalizing the purchase of their company, or that she was about to become the most important person in their professional lives. Maya walked to the break room and began her familiar routine. Coffee grounds, filtered water, 4 minutes of brewing time. But today, she was making coffee for the last time as their employee. Tomorrow, she'd be their boss. Maya. Derek's voice carried across the office. We need to talk about the Henderson follow-up. They're giving us one last chance to pitch them, and I need you to... Actually, Mr. Morrison, Maya interrupted, her voice carrying a new authority that made Derek look up from his phone. I need all of you in the conference room. There's been an important development. Derek frowned. What kind of development, and why are you... Conference room. Now. Please bring Jessica and Bradley. Something in Maya's tone made Derek pause. For the first time in 3 years, he was looking at her. Really looking at her. And what he saw wasn't the timid assistant he'd been ordering around, but a woman who spoke with quiet confidence and unmistakable authority. Maya, what's going on? Jessica asked, joining them in the hallway. She'd noticed the change in atmosphere, the way Maya was standing straighter, speaking differently. All will be explained in the conference room, Maya replied. Bradley emerged from his office, still holding his phone. I'm in the middle of a call with... It can wait, Maya said firmly. This is more important. The three of them exchanged glances, but followed Maya into the conference room. She closed the door behind them and moved to the head of the table, Derek's usual spot. Please sit down, Maya said, gesturing to the chairs. Maya, what is this about? Derek demanded, but his voice lacked its usual commanding tone. We don't have time for whatever... Pinnacle Marketing Solutions has been acquired, Maya announced, her voice steady and professional. As of this morning, the company has new ownership. The room fell silent. Jessica's face went pale. Bradley's phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the table. Derek just stared at Maya as if she'd started speaking a foreign language. Acquired? Jessica whispered. By who? Maya smiled. Not the polite, subservient smile they were used to, but the confident smile of someone who held all the cards. By me. What? Derek's voice was barely a whisper. My name is Maya Chen, and I'm the new owner of Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. I'm also the owner of this building, which means I'm your landlord as well as your employer. Bradley found his voice. First. That's impossible. You're just an assistant. You make coffee and file papers. You can't afford to buy a company. You're right, Maya said calmly. I couldn't afford it on an assistant's salary. Good thing I had other sources of income. She opened the folder David had given her and spread out documents across the conference table. Financial statements, acquisition agreements, property deeds, all bearing her name and signature. For the past 3 years, while I've been making your coffee and organizing your files, I've also been building a business portfolio. I owned 3 coffee shops, which I sold for $1.2 million. I've been investing in real estate and stocks. I've been consulting for other companies on marketing strategies I developed while ghostwriting your presentations and fixing your budget errors. Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. You wrote our presentations? The Morrison account pitch that landed your biggest client last year? I wrote that. The budget analysis that saved the Peterson contract? Mine. The Henderson Group presentation that could have saved your company if Mr. Morrison hadn't insulted them with his scheduling games? Also mine. Derek's face had gone from pale to red. This is ridiculous. You're lying. There's no way. Derek. Maya's voice cut through his protests like a blade. You're speaking to your new CEO. I suggest you adjust your tone accordingly. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. For 3 years, Derek had spoken to Maya like she was beneath. Him had treated her like she was barely worth acknowledging. Now she was telling him that she owned everything. The company, the building, his job, his future. I don't understand, Bradley said weakly. When did you? I've been planning this for 2 years, Maya explained. Ever since I realized that this company was poorly managed, financially unstable, and running on the unpaid labor of people like me. I could have let it fail, and it would have failed. You were 6 weeks away from bankruptcy when I made my acquisition. Offer. So you bought us? Jessica asked, her voice small. Like we're employees now? You were always employees, Maya pointed out. The only difference is that now you're my employees instead of Mr. Harrison's. Speaking of which, Mr. Harrison was very grateful for my offer. He's retiring to Florida with enough money to live comfortably, thanks to the premium I paid for his company. Derek slammed his hand on the table. This is insane. You can't just waltz in here and claim you own everything. Where's Harrison? I want to speak to Harrison. Mr. Harrison is currently on a beach in Key West, Maya replied smoothly. He left this morning. But if you'd like to call him, feel free. He'll confirm everything I've told you. Maya pulled out her phone and scrolled to a contact. Actually, he asked me to play this for you when I broke the news. She pressed play on a voice recording. Harrison's familiar, gravelly voice filled the conference room. Derek, Jessica, Bradley, if you're hearing this, then Maya has just told you about the acquisition. I want you to know that this decision wasn't made lightly. Maya approached me 3 weeks ago with an offer that was not only generous, but came with a business plan that could actually save Pinnacle. You 3 have been running this company into the ground for months, and Maya's been the only reason we haven't collapsed entirely. She's earned this opportunity, and frankly, you're lucky she's keeping you on. I suggest you listen to what she has to say. And Derek, try not to be a complete ass about it. Maya's your boss now, and she's smarter than all of you combined. Good luck. The recording ended. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica was the first to break. Maya, I don't know what to say. We had no idea that I was intelligent enough to run a business, Maya asked, her voice gentle but pointed. That I understood finance and marketing and client relations. Jessica, I've been doing your job for 3 years. I just wasn't getting credit for it. Bradley looked at the documents spread across the table, his accounting mind trying to process the numbers. These financial statements, you really have assets worth over $2 million? $2.7 million as of last Friday, Maya confirmed, plus the building, which is valued at another $2.3 million, and the coffee shop on the ground floor, which is already generating $15,000 a month in profit. Derek was still staring at her, his face cycling through emotions: shock, disbelief, anger, and something that might have been fear. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Maya moved to the whiteboard at the front of the room and picked up a marker. "Now we talk about the future of this company and your roles in it." She wrote 3 names on the board: Derek Morrison, Jessica Walsh, Bradley Kim. "Here's the situation," Maya began, her voice taking on the tone of a CEO addressing her employees. Pinnacle Marketing Solutions was hemorrhaging money. In the past 6 months, you lost the Henderson Group, the Mitchell Corporation, and Westside Development. That's $400,000 in annual revenue, gone because of poor client management, missed deadlines, and frankly, unprofessional behavior. She turned to face them. However, the company still has potential. The Peterson account, the Morrison Group, and 3 smaller clients are still with us. With proper management and strategic planning, we can not only retain those clients, but grow the business. Proper management? Derek's voice was defensive. "Are you saying we don't know how to manage Derek?" Maya's voice was patient but firm. "You've been late to 7 client meetings in the past 2 months. You rescheduled the Henderson Group 3 times to play golf. You consistently underestimate project timelines and overpromise on deliverables. That's not proper management." Derek's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Every word Maya had said was true, and they all knew it. Maya turned to Jessica. "Jessica, you're talented, but you've been designing campaigns without considering budget constraints or client specifications. The Westside Development campaign you created was beautiful, but it was 300% over budget and completely wrong for their target demographic." Jessica nodded slowly, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "And Bradley," Maya continued, "your financial tracking has been inconsistent at best. We've had 3 late payment penalties this quarter because invoices weren't sent on time. Our expense reporting is a mess, and you've been juggling creditor payments like you're running a shell game." Bradley slumped in his chair. "The systems were outdated, and I was trying to—" "I know what you were trying to do," Maya said, not unkindly. "You were trying to keep this company afloat with inadequate tools and no support, which is why things are going to change." She turned back to the whiteboard and began writing bullet points. "Here's what's going to happen. First, we're implementing new project management systems. Every client project will have clear timelines, budgets, and deliverables. Second, we're upgrading our technology. New computers, new software, new accounting systems. Third, we're hiring additional staff. This company has been running on skeleton crew for too long." Maya looked at each of them in turn. "You all have skills and experience that this company needs. Derek, you're good with clients when you're focused and professional. Jessica, your creative work is genuinely talented when it's properly directed. Bradley, you understand the numbers better than anyone when you have the right tools to work with." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But things are going to be different now. You report to me. You follow company policies that I set. You treat all employees, including support staff, with respect and professionalism. And you perform your jobs to the standards this company deserves. And if we don't?" Derek asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya's smile was cold and professional. "Then you'll be looking for new jobs, and, given Pinnacle's reputation in the industry over the past year, I don't think you'll find it easy to land positions with comparable salaries and responsibilities." The threat was clear, and they all understood it. In an industry where reputation mattered, being fired from a company for poor performance would follow them to every interview, every networking event, every future opportunity. "I want to be clear about something," Maya continued, her voice softening slightly. "This isn't about revenge. This is about building a successful business. I didn't buy this company to humiliate you or to get back at you for 3 years of poor treatment. I bought it because I saw its potential, and because I believe we can work together to achieve something great." She moved to the window, looking out at the city below. But make no mistake, I am the CEO now. I make the decisions. I set the direction. And I expect professionalism, competence, and results from every member of this team. Maya turned back to face them. Your new employment contracts are in your offices, along with updated job descriptions and performance expectations. Take the rest of the day to review them. We'll meet again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to discuss our first quarter goals and strategic plans. She moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. The coffee service is discontinued. There's an excellent cafe downstairs where you can purchase your own beverages. I'll no longer be making coffee for anyone. As Maya reached for the door handle, Jessica's voice stopped her. Maya, why did you keep us on? After how we treated you. Maya looked back at the three people who had spent years making her feel invisible, worthless, expendable. They looked smaller now, diminished by the revelation of how wrong they'd been about everything. Because, Maya said quietly, everyone deserves a chance to prove they can do better. Even you. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway, leaving behind 3 stunned employees and walking toward her new office, her real office, with windows and proper furniture and a nameplate that commanded respect. As she waited for the elevator, Maya heard Derek's voice through the conference room door. What the hell just happened? Maya smiled as the elevator doors opened. What had happened was simple. The invisible girl had finally become impossible to ignore. The elevator carried her up to the top floor, to her corner office with its spectacular view of Portland. Maya Chen, CEO of Apex Holdings, owner of Pinnacle Marketing Solutions, had work to do. But first, she was going to sit in her executive chair, put her feet up on her mahogany desk, and enjoy a cup of coffee that someone else had made for her. After 3 long years, Maya Chen was finally visible. And she was just getting started. 6 months later, Maya stood at the podium of the Portland Business Association's monthly luncheon, looking out at an audience of entrepreneurs, executives, and business leaders. The applause was warm and genuine as she prepared to deliver her keynote speech. The power of underestimation, how being invisible made me unstoppable. In the front row, she could see familiar faces. Alex, her former coffee shop partner, who now ran expansion consulting for 3 different restaurant chains. Robert Martinez, who had just been named Commercial Real Estate Agent of the Year. David Chen, whose law firm had grown by 40% thanks to referrals from Maya's business network. And in the back, almost hidden behind a pillar, sat Derek Morrison. He'd stayed with Pinnacle, had actually become a competent account manager once proper systems were in place and someone held him accountable. He still struggled with authority, but he was learning. They all were. 6 months ago, Maya began, her voice carrying clearly through the room. Most of you had never heard of me. That's because I was invisible, not by choice but by circumstance. I was the assistant who brought coffee, the support staff who was talked over in meetings, the employee whose contributions were ignored or attributed to others. She paused, making eye contact with members of the audience. But being invisible taught me something valuable. It taught me to observe, to listen, to understand how businesses really work. While others were focused on office politics and personal advancement, I was learning about cash flow, client relations, operational efficiency, and strategic planning. Maya clicked to her first slide, showing before and after financial charts for Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. Today, Pinnacle Marketing Solutions has tripled its revenue, retained 100% of its clients, and expanded its services to include digital marketing and brand consulting. We've hired 6 new employees, all of whom are treated with respect and given opportunities for advancement based on merit, not favoritism. The applause was enthusiastic. Maya had become something of a local business celebrity, featured in Portland Business Journal, and invited to speak at conferences across the Pacific Northwest. But this story isn't just about business success, Maya continued. It's about the power of perseverance, the importance of building skills even when they're not appreciated, and the ultimate triumph of competence over condescension. After her speech, Maya mingled with the attendees, accepting congratulations and exchanging business cards. As the crowd began to thin, she noticed Derek approaching hesitantly. "Maya," he said, his voice uncertain. "Great speech. Really inspiring. Thank you, Derek. How are things going with the Morrison Group account?" "Good. Really good. We're up for renewal next month, and I think we've got a strong chance." He paused, seeming to gather courage. "Maya, I want you to know, I'm sorry for how we treated you, for how I treated you. You didn't deserve that." Maya studied his face, seeing genuine remorse there. "I appreciate that, Derek. But you know what? In a way, I'm grateful for how things happened." "Grateful?" Maya smiled. "If you had treated me with respect from the beginning, if you had recognized my contributions and given me opportunities to advance, I might never have been motivated to build something of my own. Your underestimation became my greatest advantage." Derek shook his head in amazement. "You really had this all planned out, didn't you?" "Not all of it," Maya admitted. "But I learned early that if you want something to change, you have to be willing to change it yourself. Nobody was going to hand me respect or recognition or opportunity. I had to create those things for myself." As Derek walked away, Maya looked around the elegant ballroom, at the successful business leaders who now sought her advice and partnership. 6 months ago, she'd been invisible to most of these people. Now she was someone they wanted to know, to work with, to learn from. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, the manager of Maya's Corner Cafe. "Lunch rush was crazy today. We're up 30% from last month. Ready to talk about that second location?" Maya smiled as she typed back, "Let's schedule a meeting. I have some ideas." Outside the hotel, Maya's driver was waiting with her car. Not a luxury vehicle, but a practical hybrid that reflected her values of efficiency and sustainability. As they drove through downtown Portland, Maya reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. 3 years ago, she'd been a desperate college graduate, grateful for any job that would pay her bills. Today, she was the owner of multiple businesses, a respected voice in the Portland business community, and someone who had proven that success comes not from being noticed, but from being prepared when opportunity arrives. Her phone rang. It was her mother. "Maya, darling, I saw the article about you in the San Francisco Chronicle. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom. I have to ask, though, are you happy? I know you've achieved so much, but are you actually enjoying your life?" Maya looked out the window at the city she'd come to love, at the business district where she'd built her empire one small piece at a time. Tomorrow, she'd wake up in her new apartment, a penthouse with views of the river and mountains. She'd go to work in an office where people listened when she spoke, where her ideas were implemented and her leadership was respected. But more than that, she'd wake up knowing that she'd proven something important, that intelligence, persistence, and strategic thinking could overcome any obstacle. That being underestimated was only a disadvantage if you let it be one. "Yes, Mom," Maya said, her voice filled with quiet satisfaction. "I'm very happy." As the car pulled up to her building, Maya Chen, CEO, entrepreneur, and formerly invisible assistant, smiled at the doorman who greeted her with genuine respect. She rode the elevator to the top floor, to her home with its spectacular views and hard-earned luxury. Tomorrow, she'd continue building her empire, but tonight, she'd enjoy a glass of wine and reflect on the most important lesson she'd learned. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming impossible to ignore. The invisible girl had finally found her place in the world, and it was exactly where she'd always belonged, at the top.